Hello, long time no see. I'm aware that I didn't post anything between my what I watched in March video and this. That is because April has been insane. I wanted to do a YouTube video a week this year, which had been going pretty well. I hadn't really missed a week, and then suddenly I decided to rebrand all of my short form content and didn't realize how long that would take me. I hope people are enjoying that though. I'm posting some of that stuff on YouTube as well if you aren't following on Instagram or TikTok, but a lot of work has been put into those videos and I'm really enjoying it. I made the dumb decision though of doing director deep dives and starting off with Steven Spielberg, trying to get all of his movies done before Disclosure Day. Didn't realize he had about 40 movies, and Disclosure Day, when I started, was in 2 months. So that's been a grind and a half. And I imagine that will be reflected in the recaps for the next few months. I am watching a lot of Spielberg. But yeah, if you've not checked out any of those videos, I encourage you to do so. I think they're pretty good. And don't worry, there are other longer videos on the way. I'm going to get that sorted. I will get back in the swing of things. But without further ado, let's get into what I watched in April. I kicked off this month with the Super Mario Galaxy movie, a movie that I oddly was really excited for. I went and rewatched the first movie, and to be honest, I think it's better than I gave it credit for at the time. A lot of issues that I have with that movie are still present, particularly the use of pop songs just really bugs me in that first movie. But to give credit where it's due, I think they managed to string together a narrative from games which don't particularly have all that compelling narratives. Yes, it's basic, but I think it's serviceable for that movie. So I was just excited to return to this world, to have gotten that basic story out of the way, and to hopefully expand on these characters a little bit more than the games ever do. And we didn't really get that. I genuinely have a hard time calling this a film, because to me it feels like a collection of Easter eggs, cameos, references that are strung together from the thinnest of narratives just to appease Nintendo fans. I don't even think this is a particularly good children's movie. I just don't think that this would be compelling for a kid. Sure, adults will be popping off for the little Easter eggs that they spot, but that doesn't mean anything to a child. There is still an artistry involved in this film. I mean, it looks stunning. The animation truly is like breathtaking in moments, but I really think this constitutes a poor excuse for a movie I was not a massive fan. But hey, it seems to be working for a lot of people, so I guess we're going to get more slop. I then had one of the best experiences of my movie watching life. I saw Interstellar live in concert at the Royal Albert Hall. Oh my god, this I still think about this experience. For fear of sounding basic, I do think Interstellar's score is among Hans Zimmer's best. It might be his magnum opus. It is just an incredible score. To hear that live was something else. There was moments I was crying just from like the sheer force of the music. What I think is really special about Interstellar though is that I had this experience in that hall with the orchestra, but I've also had that experience on like a tiny TV screen at home as well. There's something really special about the movie, I think, in its screenplay. It's baked in emotionality, I think, really resonates with me personally. I know it doesn't with everybody, but I really enjoy the fact that the sci-fi-ness of the movie is grounded in emotion. You can call it silly that the entire movie's thesis is love, but I really like it. It just strikes a chord with me. And I'm saying this as somebody with a degree in physics. Like, I don't mind that it's not particularly scientific. To me, I still think this is Nolan's best. Maybe a hot take, I don't know. I then rewatched Everything Everywhere All at Once in the cinema. This is, again, just one of my favorite movies. I'm trying to seek out movies that I really enjoy in the cinema if they're there, because nothing beats the theatrical experience. Speaking of scores, I honestly think the score for Everything Everywhere All at Once is really underrated. I think it is integral to the final act working as well as it does. There's a moment where, I guess spoilers for Everything Everywhere All at Once, when Evelyn dies, quote unquote, and it cuts to the fake movie. It kind of ramps up from there, and it's all this like continuous crescendo. And yes, we're cutting back and forth between the worlds a lot, and that's ramping up, and the intensity of the situation is ramping up. There's an emotional build up from that moment in the score all the way up until the moment where Joy screams, and it's like this release of energy, and they finally just get to talk as a family. and it's just one of my favorite moments in cinema. I love that release of energy. Just a very special movie. I mean, it got all the praise I think it deserved at the time. I fear maybe people think it's overrated at this point. Don't listen to them, it's great. Then I watched The Drama, which was maybe my favorite new release this month. I really enjoyed The Drama. I think it's very hard to talk about this movie and just whittle it down into a few sentences because it is so dense and layered, and it wants you to engage with it. It wants you to really sit there, process it, talk about it. And I think that's, a really admirable quality in films. And we don't always get that with cinema. Sometimes it feels a little disposable, stuff that goes into theaters at the moment. But I loved how confronting this movie was. And it really, really tries to provoke you and make you feel uncomfortable, try and question your limits on how you should feel about certain people in certain situations. I don't really want to spoil what happens in that movie here in case you haven't seen it, but the big twist, the big reveal of The Drama, I think was executed perfectly. I like that happened so early on in the movie. And the movie isn't really about Emma's character, played by Zendaya, who's wonderful, what she actually did. It's about Charlie, Robert Pattinson's character, and this might actually be my favorite Robert Pattinson performance. It's his processing of what happened. She's already went through the work. She doesn't have to process this event. It's purely on him, and I like how the wedding is like this pressure cooker. He has a date and he has to decide how he feels by that date. So not only does he have to decide how he feels about the situation, he also is under a time crunch, and also a large part of the movie is how he perceives his relationship through the eyes of others. There's that external factor that I find really interesting. I would like to see what this movie would be like without the other people present when the twist happens. Would he feel differently? Would he process it differently? Is a lot of the processing he's doing purely based on pleasing others? I could talk a lot about this movie. I wrote a essay basically on Letterboxd if you want to check that out, but very good movie. I then watched Pizza Movie. Now, I don't know if I just fell into a random corner of the internet that was hyping this up beyond belief. I think it premiered at South by Southwest and it had good reactions there. And then it became a meme. But it wasn't a meme as in a bad movie. I think people were still gassing it up. So I was in bed one night and I just decided to stick this on, and it's exactly what I thought this movie was going to be. It is a stoner comedy, and I went in expecting that, and it's a pretty good stoner comedy. It's not going to blow your mind or anything, but I had fun with it. It was a pretty funny movie. I think out of a lot of the Stranger Things kids, Gaten is probably going to have a really good career if he gets projects given to him, because he's just a compelling actor to watch. I think one of the better actors who was on that show anyway. And also the kid from the Goldbergs is in this, which I used to watch as a kid. He's weirdly fantastic in this, so props to him. I then watched California Scheming, got to represent Scotland, had a lot of fun with this. James McAvoy's directorial debut. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of standard biopic affair. It's not doing anything that crazy, but it is very confidently directed. It has an energy to it. It has a very distinct Scottish energy in a lot of the humor and the way that scenarios kind of unfold that I really appreciate. I'm not the biggest biopic person as well, so the fact that I enjoyed this is saying something. But I will say it has this added layer of trying to tackle Scottish prejudice within the music industry, and how Scottish accents, or just accents in general, are treated among different industries, specifically the creative industries, which I found to be kind of nuanced, and also I felt resonated a little with how I have navigated the world. So I would highly recommend this if you're Scottish, and if you're not as well. I then watched Empire Records in a packed cinema on Rex Manning Day. This movie, I really want to just rewatch this movie, honestly. It is one of my favorite watches I've had this year thus far. Just maybe the environment I was in. This is a cult movie, and clearly the people who showed up were really into the movie. I don't know why this is left out when people bring up hangout comedies, or comedies of this sort of era, the Ferris Bueller's, the Breakfast Clubs, that kind of thing. Yes, this was the 90s. It was a little bit later. But I think it's maybe better than those. Maybe not Ferris Bueller, but I think it's better than The Breakfast Club. It is a movie that is distinctly missing from modern day cinema as well, a genre that's missing. These hangout movies that feature late teens, young adults just trying to navigate life and figure stuff out. The cast of characters in this movie as well. I mean, it's a short runtime, but you get to know them so well, so quickly. It has such compelling characters, especially for the runtime. they are nuanced for the length of time that you spend with them. I adored their relationships and the interactions and the way that the whole movie just felt like it was flowing the entire time. I really, really enjoyed this, and it made me question why we don't have movies like this for the modern era. I don't know if it's because things like this, scenarios like this, don't exist anymore, where you don't have a bunch of young people working together and just scraping by, but it's okay. Everybody's too like concerned about the cost of living. Who knows? I then went to a mystery movie at the Prince Charles Cinema in London. Now, the mystery movies that they do aren't like Cineworld or View or like the big chains where you kind of get hints and you know what you're going to see. It could be anything. Some person who works there just picks a random movie and you watch it, which is really fun. I was really scared it was going to be like a horror movie because I'm not the biggest fan of horror, but it ended up not being a horror. I watched The Station Agent, which is a Tom McCarthy film, a really quaint little slice of life kind of movie. It features Peter Dinklage, Patricia Clarkson, and Bobby Cannavale, and it's about Peter Dinklage's character going to a rural town and taking over a like train station place that he lives. And it's just about the like friendship that forms between the trio and all of them going through kind of tragic things in their life and learning to open up and speak to each other. It's just a really nice movie. You've got a trio of really complex individuals all bouncing off each other, giving great performances. It really is wonderful. Bobby Cannavale in this as well. So funny. Maybe my favorite performance I've seen of his. I then did a double feature of Joachim Trier movies. I watched Oslo August 31st, which was my first time watching this movie. Whoa, this movie's heavy. The more that I see of Anders Danielsen lie, he's just like up there with the best performers I've seen. Every performance of his is so different as well. And this movie is like the same. He's just completely different in this movie and a transfixing performance. This is just another example to me of how good Trier is at writing human characters. He's perhaps my favorite writer at the moment. I really like the way that he writes complex individuals. There's a moment in this movie, and it's stayed with me since I've seen it, that's like deceptively simple. It'll just pass you by. It's not like a catch your eye kind of scene. It's not something that's loud and ostentatious. The main character is just sitting and he's observing people and he's listening to their conversations. It's that idea of like Sonder, I feel, and it's captured so wonderfully. I mean, it isn't even really a bit of screenwriting. It's just the way that scene's directed and performed, and it's a beautiful moment, and it encapsulates, I think, a lot of what that film's trying to say, that we all have these complexities in us, this desire to be seen and to be heard and to be loved, and to observe that in other people and maybe not feel that yourself is like heartbreaking. It's truly heartbreaking. The movie is really sad in that way, but gosh, a really incredible movie. I think loneliness is something that affects a lot of people. It affects probably more people than we're aware of because people don't open up about it. I just find loneliness a very heartbreaking experience to witness, but also it's very hard to tell cinematically. And this movie does it incredibly well. I really, really liked it. And then I rewatched The Worst Person in the World. I fear I don't need to say much about this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's spectacular. Got to see it on the big screen again. Loved it. Renata Reinsva gives one of the best performances I've ever seen in that movie. The sequences towards the beginning especially as well. You're just completely like enamored by everything that she's doing. Once again, I just think Trier, especially in this movie, it might be the movie where I think he does this the best. He just encapsulates what it feels like to be human and the rocky roller coaster that we're all on. There's sequences in that movie that I think could just be up there with the best in cinema. It's special. Very special movie. I then watched You, Me and Tuscany. I was not planning to see this movie because to me it looked a little like streaming rom-com shit, but I went out to support it because there was a whole movement about, I can't remember the name of the director, but a black female director was trying to get their project to be made, and it hinged on the performance of this movie, which is crazy. She had nothing to do with this movie. Anyway, so I wanted to support it. The movie's fine. It's not great. It is kind of exactly what I thought it would be. I think the movie could have been a little bit better if the leads had chemistry. The leads don't have chemistry, so it kind of takes you out of it a little. Like classic kind of streaming rom-coms, this like era of rom-com that we're in, all the side characters are far more interesting than the main central characters, which sucks. But yeah, it was inoffensive, I guess. Apart from the green screen, there's some bad green screen. I then watched Eraserhead in the cinema. This I've been making my way through Lynch movies. Whoa, this was interesting. I was extremely tired this day, like extremely tired. To the point that I think like eyes were half opened watching it. But in a weird way, I feel like that might be the prime way to experience this movie, this dreamlike state. I think Lynch might have appreciated that. I thought this movie was like absurdly long, but I think again it's because of the way I was feeling, and it felt like I was in a nightmare for that length of time. I felt really smart when the film began as well, because the first few sequences happened. I was like, this is about pregnancy and children and all that kind of stuff, and I felt so smart because the other Lynch movies I've seen haven't felt like that. They haven't had this easy to unpack like theme that's running through the movie. A lot more of his movies are up for interpretation. There's like no clear answer. But when I was watching this, I was like, I figured it out. And then, like 5-10 minutes into the movie, that is just the point of the movie. As somebody who has a pet peeve of children screaming, that mixed with how tired I was, yeah. I honestly, though, I think that was the right way to experience this. I did not have a great time, but also I thought it was an incredible movie. This is where I started watching my Steven Spielberg movies for my director deep dives. I'm not going to go too much into them here. There's a whole bunch of like short form content if you want to watch them. I go into the history of each of them and I give a little review at the end. But I guess just to keep these monthly recaps like full, I kicked off the month with Amblin, his first short film that premiered, or that still exists. He has a feature film that doesn't exist anymore. Fun fact. I also fear that like I am going to become that Steven Spielberg fun fact guy because I have so much knowledge about him now. I'll try my best not to. Amblin was fun. It's inoffensive. It's very much like a proof of concept. There's some nice directorial flourishes here and there. Even if the story isn't like super interesting. Then I watched Duel, his first TV movie, which ended up being his first feature movie. Incredible. This movie was released as a TV movie and then was like scenes were added in because they liked it so much and they released it in cinemas. No wonder. This movie's incredible. It is very much a precursor to Jaws. It's like Jaws with a truck, and it's just great. I can't believe how well directed his car chase sequences are. Most of this film is in a car. When you think about the period of when this film was made, who was making it, how young they were making it, and like the limitations that they had, it looks better than most modern day movies when they have scenes in cars. It genuinely shocked me how good it looks. Then I got to back watch two of my favorite films of all time in the cinema. Kicked off with La La Land. I have no way of compressing my thoughts about that movie into like 1 minute. It is my favorite film of all time. I wrote a million words on that movie in various different places. I just love it. I think there's nothing like it. There's something incredibly special about it. I think it captures the human spirit and the human desire to create and belong so wonderfully and to be loved as well. And I like reflecting on when I first watched this movie, when it first came out, absolutely hating the ending because I was like, they should be together, like I was a kid. And now reflecting on it and looking at it and being like, they made the right choice. And just because they don't end up together doesn't mean that their love wasn't real and didn't affect them. I adore the movie so much. And honestly, it just reminds me why I go to the cinema when I rewatch this. To be sitting next to a complete stranger and us sobbing our eyes out for the last like 10 minutes. Yeah, nothing beats that. Nothing beats that. And then the next day I rewatched Challengers. I love this movie. A video essay will be coming on this at some point. For the people that have like listened to me say that for ages now, like truly ages. The video essay is written. I want to do something big for it. So stay tuned for that. Incredible movie. Honestly, really sad as well that it didn't kick off this horny sports renaissance after. I guess we had heated rivalry, but Yeah, disappointing to see that. I want more films like Challengers. Then I watched Citizen Kane for the first time in cinemas, and I liked it. This movie's good. Shocker. I don't know if it's quite the greatest movie ever made. I think this movie definitely had a high bar set for it when I was watching it. It is very good. I was a little annoyed about how this movie wraps up. I thought it was leading something very interesting, and then it goes a beat too long, and it just soured how I felt about the movie. I don't know if that's a common experience or if I'm just being too nitpicky, but the very last sequence, again, won't spoil it. It really irked me. I'd love to know if anybody else feels the same way. But yeah, good movie, shocker. I was then invited to a LGBTQIA plus short film festival where they screened 5 different short films, which were varying levels of good. I saw a movie called Ranch, which I really enjoyed, honestly, and I actually would recommend you to seek out if you are interested in it. It's about the island of Lesbos, which I didn't know was a thing, but it's like an island in Greece that is primarily queer women, and how they like integrate with the communities there. And it's a really fascinating doc. It's like a standard talking heads doc, but it's beautiful at the same time. Would highly recommend that. I then watched A Pride at St. James, which was a doc about a pride at a church called St. James, which was interesting. A short film called Picture by Calvin, which was just a very, very short film about running, which was interesting. A short called For Better or For Worse, which was about trans people, that I really liked the sentiment, but I didn't like the execution. And then a short film called I Don't Know If I'll Have to Say Everything Again, which was about a queer person who had to keep coming out to their relative who was suffering from dementia, which again, really heavy subject matter. Didn't love completely how it was done, but interesting short film. I then watched Moulin Rouge in the cinema. Did not like this. I'm so sorry. I know so many people love this movie. I'm not the biggest Baz Luhrmann fan. I was not really loving the jukebox musical kind of stuff. I don't think the songs were all that great, if I'm being honest. Or they weren't songs that I particularly liked. And then the like renditions in this movie, I didn't think did anything for them. Nicole Kidman's great. Ewan McGregor's good. I just didn't love this. I'm going to stop myself from saying a lot because I feel like this is a hot take. I know it is. I have friends who are not happy with my opinion on this movie. Then I was in a little bit of a Spielberg binge, so I watched Something Evil, Savage, and the Sugarland Express. The first two being his other TV movies that he made, which are both okay. Something Evil isn't great. It's like Steven Spielberg's foray into horror. It's one of the only times he's done that. And it's fine. Savage could actually be really interesting. I think if it was remade or like reworked a little. It's just really heavy on characters and plot and people all the time. But it's an interesting movie about how the media is trying to expose like political corruption and the maybe ways in which they facilitate it. It doesn't resolve into something that's interesting. It resolves quite neatly, which is a little annoying, but it was okay. The Sugarland Express, which is technically his first feature film, is brilliant. It's really, really good. Again, it's another one of these movies which is like primarily on the road. It's like car chases. It's thrilling as well. I think with this compared to Duel, he has more emotion baked into the story. There's more like you get more attached to it because the main characters in this movie are trying to escape prison to be reunited with their son, whereas in Duel it's just a man that's being terrorized by a truck. Although I do think I prefer Duel, even though I'm saying this. But yeah, this is also a very good movie. I mean, both of those movies being his like debuts, it's crazy for the time period and the age that he was. Yeah, he's just very good. I then watched Michael, the Michael Jackson biopic, and I got a little bit of heat on social media for this because I said it is the worst musical biopic ever, and I think I stand by that. I'm not a massive fan of musical biopics anyway. I've said that so many times. I really don't like them as a genre. I think what they decide to do, especially these big studio biopics, they want to please the most people possible. And normally that just means telling a very, very basic story, playing their songs, and that's it. People eat it up. And to me, the reason I think this is the worst is not because it does anything offensively bad per se, but because of who Michael Jackson was. And it's not because I wanted any of the abuse allegations discussed. That takes place in a different time period than this movie does. So it was nothing to do with that. It's primarily that the movie that they present, I don't think is fitting for the person that Michael Jackson was. It very much felt like a Wikipedia page going through plot point to plot point, playing his best songs, recreating concerts and music scenes, which I also don't find compelling, because if you want to go watch them, go watch them. We have videos of his concerts and his music videos. And often with those sorts of things, you can get a sense for why they were such a big star, because you can feel the power that they have over the audience there. Whereas in a movie where they're trying to recreate that doesn't always come through. And I also think the concert scenes just look bad. They don't have that lived in feel to them. It just feels very empty. And I think the whole movie is trying to preserve his legacy instead of trying to unpack who he really was and try to really understand Michael. There was also some remnants in this movie that felt like they were leading to the abuse stuff, or like allusions to it with him and the childhood kind of stuff. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy this movie, sadly. And then I watched Mother Mary, which I absolutely adored. This movie has been on my most anticipated list for years. I've been aware of it. I love David Lowery's original work. I think especially his work on The Green Knight is phenomenal. And I think the work that he does here is equally as great. This movie is very, very simple. It's deceptively simple. It is two incredible actresses just going toe to toe with each other, getting to expel things that have been harbored within them for such a long time. And just watching the pair of them just go back and forth speaking was a treat in itself. I love that the entire movie is thematically in line with pop as a genre. This idea of taking things that are dark and deep-seated and like really horrible things and expelling them to make something that is joyous and beautiful, making art out of things that are bad. I love how Long Lowry allows it to be a very intimate experience. I mean, most of the film, or like a large portion of the film, takes place in this shed, and then slowly expands that out. But you never really leave this place. It becomes an almost like continual set. It's really interesting. I really adored everything about this. The entity which had been expelled, and that being so tied to the themes, the performances, where this film ends up going. I really liked it. Then I watched Speed Racer in the cinemas because every American mutual of mine told me to go watch it, and I adored it. They do not make movies like this anymore. They really don't. This is such a unique blockbuster. And I don't think we will ever get a movie like this, which is really cool. It is colourful and zany and wild, but the thing that stands out to me about this movie as soon as I left was the visual effects, because objectively they're bad. But actually, in context of the movie, it is so clear the vision that they have for this world that once you settle into the visual style, you just believe it. And it ends up being such a thrilling experience because you are so in touch with the way that they are visualizing their world. Like, you just believe these visual effects, even though they're not good. And it looks far better to me than the grey slop VFX that we get in a lot of movies now, because there doesn't feel like a clear vision for that. It just looks out of place. Where here, there's a world and there's a reason for everything, even if it doesn't look incredible. I loved it. Then I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind for the first time. Great movie. It feels like I'm slowly learning how important John Williams is as a person. He is instrumental to so many Spielberg movies. It's insane. I really liked this movie. Also, another series that I'm starting on my socials is I make my way through the Letterboxd Top 100. So I started that with It's Such a Beautiful Day, which was a great way to start off this series. It's not a movie I expected to be on this list at all. It's a movie that very little people worked on. It's a very experimental movie. It's shorter than most movies, and it's about a stick figure, which is crazy. But similarly to what I was talking about, if you have a vision, I think that is the main driving force of what makes a good film. You don't need endless resources and money to make things. If you have a vision and you know what you want to say, you can make something very, very meaningful. And this movie was that. It was really special. Then I watched Beau Travail, which I'm going to be honest, I think I need to watch it again. I don't think I was in the right headspace for this. I really liked it, and the more that I've sat with it, I enjoy it more. The depictions of masculinity that this movie deals with, and the ways that masculinity actually is damaging to men, I find really fascinating. There's images that stick with me from this movie, specifically the part where the men are having to hug each other, but their bodies are so static and rigid. And it's this dichotomy between the way that their bodies are functioning, like this like rigidness, and the act that they're performing, which should be loving and emotional. And it's that contrast that I think encapsulates the entirety of the movie. I just find it a little hard to get into the movie. I find it a little bit hard to grab onto anything, but I wonder if that's the point by where the film ends up. So I'd be excited to revisit this. And then finally, I watched The Misfits. This was my first Marilyn Monroe movie. It's clear to see why she was such a big, massive actress of her time. She's brilliant in this. This movie is plagued with misogyny, but it's really interesting. It places these cracked, fractured individuals, and it just lets them be, lets them interact with each other. And what I really appreciated is its way of tackling relationships and the way that men fawn over Marilyn Monroe, and whether or not they actually were in love with her or just the idea of being with her. I think that was really interesting. And maybe that's a reason for some of the misogyny in the movie. I don't know, but I didn't love where this ended up, but it was a good movie. And that's it. That's everything I watched in April. I would love to know what your favorite thing that you watched in April was. And if you're not following me on Instagram and TikTok, as I said, doing a lot of really interesting stuff over there with short form content. So go check that out. And I will hopefully have a new video up soon.